Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Live to Roll show. I am your host for the day, Brianna Wheeler, here with another women's disability show. And today's topic is going to be about our journey with work, school, and transportation after injury. Let's start with introductions. Let's go to Nicole and Ashley.
So I'm Nicole and this is Ashley. I'm a T6 paraplegic in a car accident.
Yeah, and I'm a C4 quadriplegic in car accident.
Thank you. You can go next, Jessica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Brito. I am a C7 incomplete, and I was injured 10 years ago in a car accident.
Thank you so much. And I am Brianna. I was injured 5 years ago. I was shot in my back, and I have a bullet lodged in T12, and I have fractures and fragments throughout L1 through L5. So that's our introductions for the day. And let's get right into it. So Maya unfortunately couldn't make it today because she wasn't feeling well. We're all kind of feeling a little bit under the weather today. That's why we are a little bit late, but just bear with us. Thank you so much for joining in, and hopefully this helps you out. So going into our first question, were you working or going to school before your injury? If so, did you go back, and how long did it take you to go back? And if you didn't go back, what were some of the reasons in this decision? So I'm going to start with Jessica first, because I'm going to lean on Jessica a lot because Jessica's been through all three of these things. So we're going to get her advice and pick her brain a bit on this topic. So how long did it take you to go back to school after your injury?
So before my injury, I was working and I was going to school. And once I got injured, I have some damage on C4, C5. So it kind of took me a while to become independent. And so I would say year 2.5, I went back to school, but I didn't go back to work because it was just too much. What I did some tutoring on the side because my job was as a tutor before my accident, but I didn't go back to like a formal company. So going back to school, it was really hard for me because of the cathing. So when I started school, my mom would go with me every day and make sure that I would be okay for every class. She would just wait for me and she could help with cathing and all of that stuff. The first semester that I was back, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start driving. And I know we're going to talk about that too. And I just made it my mission to really learn to cath, which was obviously a horrible headache. When I started going on my own to school, I remember like having accidents in the restroom and just like calling my mom and saying, can you come help me? I made a mess. And I just like would sit in the school restrooms and just wait for her to help clean up the mess. So it was a struggle for sure. Yeah. So it took me 2 years to go back, 2.5 to be on my own, and probably another semester of a lot of accidents. So.
Okay, and then that kind of got you comfortable enough to then go to work because you already had all those years of like schooling, so you kind of got the hard part out of the way with that. So going to work, do you feel like it was like more like working the same as before, or what was your dilemmas with that?
I think that I chose jobs that would be a little bit more accommodating to my needs. So my first job was my second year. Well, I only needed 2 more years to get my degree. So my senior year at Cal State Fullerton, you need to do an internship. So I got my internship at Rancho. Super accessible. Everyone there is in a wheelchair. So there's more understanding. And it was a good way for me to kind of get that exposure with work. I still, at the time, had a lot of issues with my bladder. I hadn't discovered Botox yet. And I have the cath based on sensation. So I would go like every hour. And I remember being so embarrassed, like having to leave in the middle of a meeting 3 times. Like it just felt like, damn, like mortifying, like first. But it was an environment where people were more understanding, to be honest. I don't know if that's a difference, but my experience was they were more understanding. And then slowly I got more of a hang of my bladder. And there are some things like I don't know if you guys notice sometimes in these lives, but I'm constantly moving because I have really bad spasms. And I remember being embarrassed. I'm going to be moving the whole time I'm talking to someone. I'm a therapist and I do talk therapy. And luckily, again, there was a really great social worker at Rancho who's in a wheelchair. And I would try really hard not to move. And I took the toll at the end of the day. Like my legs would be swollen and I would be really stiff and I would be like spasming so bad by the end of the day that I would be like jumping out of my chair. And she was like, Jessica, just spasm. Like people aren't going to mind. Just do it. And sure enough, I had to learn to be comfortable. I spasm in front of everyone now and I do it constantly. And I learned to get comfortable with it. But obviously at the beginning, it was like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm like going crazy here, but
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. But yeah,
I think that, yeah, what were you saying?
I pick spaces to kind of try it out first. And then I've worked obviously in more places since.
Yeah, that's typical. So, do you feel like you wish that you would have learned how to cath before, or was it just like a part of your journey? Like, or what would your suggestion to other people be?
Call me. Honestly, the hardest thing about learning to cast is the setup. I didn't know too many females in chairs, and I knew so many guys in chairs, right? And the girls that I did know in chairs weren't cathing. So it was hard to kind of figure out how to get it done. So I don't know that I would have preferred to learn before going to school or things like that. I think being in those situations forced me to figure it out. And I really did. When I became a mentor, and anytime I meet someone in a wheelchair, a female in a wheelchair that wants to learn to cath, I literally show them every step of the way. Like I take them to the restroom. I say, this is where you put your catheter. This is how you change. This is how you undress. This is how you do every little part. Because if we can get the setup down, then the actual process is easier. But there was really no one to show me how to do it. OTs tried. And with the amount of spasm I have, with the limited hand function that I have, like it was just like no one could figure out how do you teach a quad to cath. I've taught 2 quads to cath, which is very rare. And I've showed a couple paras in the hospital, but it was part of my journey, definitely, where just that you have to do it because you decided you were going to go to school by yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely one of the fears. How about you, Nicole and Ashley? Were you working or going to school before your injury?
So Ashley and I have our bachelor's before our injury. She graduated in 2016. I graduated in 2017. So we already had our schooling that we wanted, our college degrees, before we got injured. And then I was working on going back. So I have my degree in early childhood education. But because we got injured in 2019, I was working on going back. And right when I was about to return, literally did everything our lovely friend, the sickness came. So if that stopped, they closed. They ended up closing. It was like this whole thing. So in the meantime, I actually had worked. I know we're going to talk about this later, but in the meantime, I had actually worked my vocational rehab, the same person I was working with to like return to work, to learn to drive. So I already have my license. Just it's now modifying the car. But I wanted to share a story when I found out this was a topic, because I'm sure people heard this before. When I first got injured, my doctor told me I would never be able to take care of young children ever again, because my degree is for like infants to like first grade level, and that hurt. And I just want anyone out there, you can. And in that moment when he told me that, I remember I felt like, wow, everything I worked so hard for, out the window. But it took like going into the community, and like that's why I'm so fascinated hearing Jessica talk about how she learned everything, because he literally told me that I'll never be able to do young children. Like he'd never see, you better find a different field to work in. Of course I dropped him as a doctor, but just this topic is like dear to me, because even I went to visit my kids before the pandemic, and like they don't see any difference, and there's ways to accommodate, and I could see that when I was in the building. I could see that with the children and being in the classroom, and I feel like just knowing, like for me, the staff that I was working with was really helpful, and they were all for like helping rearrange the classroom in any way that would help Miss Nicole. So I think it's important to just use your voice, and that's what I did throughout the whole process before, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's so important because our automatically response is like, we can't do this. And the doctors aren't really that supportive. I've heard it a lot where people are just like, how would I ever do it? Because our brain can't like fathom, because we've only done it one way. So we can't imagine, but you'd be surprised about speaking up and just adjusting a few things can really help. And you can actually do, what you put your mind to doing, and I think that that's an important factor to think about. I'm not saying that every single job is going to be accessible, or maybe that you're going to deal with like people that are willing to change things around for you, but you don't know if you don't ask. So that's the main point, So how about you, Ashley? What field did you work in?
So I was kind of in a limbo because I had actually just moved back home from a different state. I had lived out of state. And actually, the Friday before the accident, I had just had an interview to student teach where my sister was at. That's not what my degree is in. Substitute teach. My bad. Substitute teach. And then the accident happened, so that's not your field. But that's not my field. But I don't see myself ever going into my field. But I know we're gonna talk about that later. So yeah, that's kind of what I was doing, and I'm just chilling.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you feel like some of the reasons are why you haven't went back to work yet?
I think for me, I know some people don't like this, but it's a lot of my internalized ableism. I can't do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that that's a big factor.
Yeah, it's because for me, I went to school for mass communications with a concentration in broadcasting, and a lot of that is, for me, I liked working behind the camera. A lot of that is intense labor that requires you to lift stuff or have your leg, and I don't have that anymore, and I just don't see myself doing that. But I know there's ways I can. I also loved writing, and I can't do that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely hard when you come across like an occupation that you can't do, and it's physically impossible. It's definitely hard to realize because basically you create all these goals in your mind, and you have this vision for who you want to be, and all of a sudden, all of it is just erased. You feel like that you did the schooling and it was pointless, or whatever the case may be. I totally feel you in that. I was going to school for psychology before my injury, and I felt like I just felt like that was my passion. That was where I was going to go. That was like what I wanted to do. But then after my injury, I feel like a lot of it has changed for me, and I just feel like that might not be what I want to do. I also let a lot of my fears stop me from going back. So I'm barely thinking, and I'm 5 years post injury, and I'm barely thinking about going back to school now because I was like, okay, for instance, like today, I have a UTI. I didn't get good night's sleep. I'm in pain, and I'm so worried like that it's gonna affect my schoolwork. So before I was like A plus, everything, not a procrastinator, doing my schoolwork, and I felt like schooling was very a big part of my life. And then I didn't feel like I could put in that same dedication to my work, and I was worried about it, and I'm still get worried, but I don't know if I don't try. And people like Jessica really do motivate me to do it, and show me that it's possible. So going back to you, Jessica, is there anything that really does get in your way of work, or when you're in school, you mentioned cathing, but anything else with your disability?
So obviously all of it, right? Everything you mentioned, my body is crazy. Our bodies are really interesting. Like I would go hard for like 3 weeks for finals, and then I would turn everything in and I would collapse. Like I would go full blown UTI, complete fatigue, crazy spasms. But it was like my body knew, and it would wait and it would wait and it would wait. And then I would like turn in my last paper and I'd be like, all right, let's do this, And don't get me wrong, like I remember even because I got my bachelor's, started working at Rancho, then went back and got my master's. And I would write papers at the emergency room while I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And, they take forever with all those labs and those tests. So I would start working on papers and research. And, I always say that pain is just something that there's either a cure for or a tolerance. And I remember I had a lot of issues, and now that I'm older, I understand it better. But with my bowels, where I would go I've gone 10 days without being able to use the restroom, right? And I was like in the emergency room trying to figure out what's going on. And obviously now I'm older and I know it's diet and I know it's hydration and I know it's taking care of my body. But, in your 20s, I wasn't as aware or even willing to look at it. But yeah, I had all of it. And it's interesting because I stopped working for anyone, and this month I went full time in my private practice and my own business, and I actually got really sick over the weekend. And it's like, oh, I don't have paid time off. Like I run every single department of my business, right? And so I'm like super sick, dying, texting all my clients, letting them know that I'm going to have to reschedule their appointments and, having to move things around. And I'm like half dead in bed. So, yeah, it's not easy. I could never tell anyone that it is. Can we do it? For sure. And so, yeah, it's really nice though when you work for a company. Like I remember I would take at least like 2 sick days a month, and then I had vacation time. So if I wanted to take that off, I was going to take that off, and there's no worry. You have money coming in anyway. So it's more now that I'm completely on my own and starting, right? Because when you're starting, you don't have the full backing yet. Obviously, I'm okay. But what I'm saying is like, I don't have those safety nets right now.
Is it the same in California? Like here, when I was about to return to work, I was gonna do like really, really part-time because I didn't want to mess up my Social Security coming in. And
yeah,
because what you're talking about, like being sick and stuff, that was something I was thinking about, or like accident happens and I'm like, I don't want to go to work. So I wonder if for that being the case, like for me, it was like I was going to go really, really, really part-time. And even then I was like not as strong as I am now. And I wonder how like hard that would be to go full time. I know for me, I was like, I want to go really part-time and ease into it.
So that's what I did. So when I started working at Rancho, I was a supervisor for their mentoring program. And you really have to outweigh the money and the time and the benefits. So with my bachelor's in psychology, I couldn't get any jobs worth going full time and losing my Social Security because I also got in-home supportive services. So it's like, how am I going to have a caregiver? At this point, I'm pretty independent and I don't need it. but at that point I still did. So I had to outweigh it. So I started part-time, right? And for me, I really needed a master's in order to make enough money to make it worth it to go full-time. It's about money, girl. Like,
Yeah, that's one of our questions as well going into is how's the government hurt or helped you in not going back to work or school? And I think that they put so many problems in our way, to prevent us and like really stay on government assistance. Like it's hard because you have to outweigh like, is it even worth me going back to work, with them cutting all my stuff off and I'm going to be worse off than not working. Like it doesn't make any sense, and it is hard, and you do have to like outweigh that. And also like it kind of sucks because if you do want to work, then you have to be like under a certain limit. Jessica, I don't know if you know like the exact limits and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, every state's going to be different. It's based on the poverty line. So depending on what you're receiving, the total you can earn with what you're receiving from SSDI and what you're receiving from your employer, you can't make more than $2,000 a month. So like, and as you get higher than that, they start deducting from your SSDI slowly until it's completely gone. And that's SSDI. With SSI, they start deducting right away. And those are federal programs, so I'm sure they're similar or exactly the same in each state. So really, you need to be able to get a job where you're making at least 75,000 or more. And then you also have to look at the insurance, because what happened to me in the end, and one of the reasons I left the company I was working with, it was no one told me that I had to keep my Medicare for the rest of my life. And even if I have to pay 2 insurances, I have to pay 2 insurances forever. Because the insurance at my company wouldn't cover catheters, but I didn't know right away, and I dropped my Medicare. And so that really took a toll on me. But again, you really have to make sure that the job you're going to get pays you a lot, because you're incentivized to stay broke. Like that's what the government, that's the incentive by the government. Like they tell us they don't want us on their system because we're just taking advantage. But then they put us in a very vulnerable state where we'll lose our health coverage. And the jobs we can get, if they don't give you health coverage, then it's not worth it, right? So they're telling you your best bet is to stay broke.
Yeah, and it's super stressful because, and then I hate also that you hear those comparisons of like, oh, look at like so and so's doing it, but everybody has different money levels. Like everybody's not going through the same struggles, and like you're making it so like the most percentage of disabled people end up being on assistance, and like it is extremely difficult. So are those the problems that you guys felt like you guys are running to as well in Chicago?
When I was going back, I'm telling you, I was so close to going back. Like I literally, I had a start date. We were ready, and that was a problem for me. It was like where the Social Security, like what I make, you can't make more than 2,000. So it's the same as Cali. You can't make more. So we were trying to figure out my check with that. So like, how many hours are you gonna work? And then too with that is like kids. When you work with children, when I was able-bodied, that's a job. You're running around chasing children all day, teaching them. And sometimes I was like, what if I get burnt out and I need a day off? Like I told that to my director, and she was like, you could take it. But then of course, you say I was speaking to the guy from the state, and he's like, you're not going to get the money though. They're going to keep cutting it. They're going to keep cutting it. So you either have to go and fight through, or you're just going to be broke. And I was just like, it was worrying me, and I wanted to go back. I was so close and gonna go back, but I was also really nervous. Like, if my body doesn't agree with me going back the way I am I gonna be right back to square one, but now with no money? And that's a scary thing. And they don't really walk you through that. Like nobody really tells you how to navigate that. You're kind of just figuring it out.
Yeah, I
And you
think
know,
it's because it's like your decision as well.
and you know what?
Mhm.
Like I'm a therapist, but I mean I'm a social worker. My degree's in social work. So I'm like, they don't teach you the language you have to use because I'm sorry, but if you use the right language, you can figure it out. They don't tell you, you know, what other options do I have? Like I know we have, I don't know, I don't think this one I think is a Medi-Cal program, but in Cali they have the 250 plus program, which means you can make up to 250% above the poverty line without them cutting some of your benefits. And but no one, you call Medi-Cal and no one knows how to get you into the program. So I'm like, well, what good does it do me? You know? And that's the other problem where it's like there are programs and there are ways of helping us, but then no one knows how to do the program. Like it's just crazy. So it is, you know, it is a battle for our community to decide, should I stay broke, right, and stay alive, or should I make a little extra money and possibly end up like dying, you know? So,
Mhm.
I mean, people don't understand that, but it is a very tricky dance. I learned that with my bachelor's degree, I wasn't going to make ever enough money to be able to take that leap. Um, so that's finding the right job is key. You know, I know
Okay, okay.
there's people that
I
like to
didn't.
work with commissions, like big commissions, because
Mhm.
that's what pulls them over. And then there's tricks, ladies. Like if you buy bonds with your money, we can't even have money in our bank account. Like I think if you buy bonds, they can't touch you. It's just it's a mess.
It's so many like twists and turns, you know, and it does suck because there's like not there's no like 1, 2, 3. This is what you're supposed to do and how you have to do it because
Mhm.
everybody's different, every spot's different, you know, and like there are programs to out there again to help, you know, and that's another thing I wanted to mention. If you guys go to the Triumph Foundation website, especially well, people in California, they have a lot of resources on there. Let me spell it out for you guys. So it's Triumph and then the dash foundation.org, and on that website they list some good programs to go back to work and
And
different stuff that you
another
can read
thing,
up on.
you know, another thing is look for your local look for disability advocates. There are disability advocates in each state that will kind of break this down for you. Not, they won't always have the right solution, but they'll break it down for you so that you can kind of learn what are the little loopholes where you're like, okay, I can work and earn this much. I mean, Cali has a lot of programs. I don't know about other states. Um, but you want to tap into your Department of Rehab, which, you know, you want to talk about ableism, you'll come across it even there sometimes. I know that I had to go off on someone. And then when it comes, but there are some great people that know great stuff. Like they've gotten me a lot of great info and helped me a lot. And then yeah, always look for disability advocates in your area. Just Google it, call them. They're really helpful at getting you some of these questions answered because there is no 1, 2, 3 step. And if someone gave you the wrong information and you did something wrong, you're the one penalized, not them, you know?
Yeah, definitely. These are all things to like take into account. Sean put up the Triumph website so into the chat. So make sure you guys screenshot that and go check it out because it does have tons of different resources. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is the Triumph Employment Grant. You also worked with them on that, right, Jessica?
Yeah,
Just
I'm one of the recipients.
if you just want to like talk a little bit more about like what they did and what they helped you do with that grant.
So, you know, I am one of the ambassadors for Triumph, and they've helped me throughout my injury get chairs and different things that I've needed. Um, and, you know, it hit me that I wanted to open my own practice, but I'm like, well, how are we how am I going to do this financially? And then I was actually at our ambassadors training, and I asked Andrew, I was like, wait a second, can I apply for this grant? And he was like, yeah, of course you can. And sure enough, what you have to do is write your business plan. So really write down what your goals are, what you're doing, have a full plan. And then the board at Triumph will review it, and you get a grant for $5,000 to either start your own business or get you whatever you need to start working. So for example, maybe Department of Rehab can't help with an accommodation at a job that you did get, and you really want to work there and you need some more accommodations, and the company is open to you doing it, but they're not willing to do it themselves. The grant can really help. Or if it's just like, you need transportation or clothes, different things to kind of get you on your feet to be ready to go back to work, then you'd be eligible for this grant. So it's a great opportunity for anyone who needs that little extra help to get you back to work.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an amazing program, and you can find more about that on their website as well, just to help people out. So there are different programs like that. Just reach out to people. If you see somebody who's going to work, don't hesitate to ask them about their story and just ask them how they did it, if they have any specific programs that they use, anything like that, because that's how you're going to find out the most information, unfortunately, is like through each other and through the community and like asking people stuff. So over there in Chicago, do they have a department of rehab over there?
We have a department of rehab, and we have, when I was working with an educational rehab therapist, she was like the one telling them what to change and like what would need to be different, because like we had high cubbies. I was like, gotta move those low. So she was the one like communicating that.
Okay.
And I would like say it, but she would be the one that was like dealing with them and like their HR department when I was about to return. But here, like Ashley and I actually, that's why Jessica was talking about, it's funny because we were just put in circles like a couple weeks ago trying to call the state, and like everyone was acting like they didn't know what they were talking about, and it could be really frustrating trying to navigate the health system and the like government assistance system, because like they kept transferring me, and I was okay, someone has to know the answer here. And it's kind of ridiculous because they do set us up for failure, and it's kind of up to you to get those answers, and still trying to figure it out. But
I talk to so many people where I feel like it gives us anxiety to even make the phone calls, because these people, they're most of the time they're rude, they're annoyed with their job, they aren't giving us accurate answers, and like Jessica said, like you almost have to fight for like until you get the answer that you really need. Have to keep, even if you run into a rude person, don't let that deter you, because I feel like that's what happens a lot, and it pushes people away from continuing doing what they want to do or what they need to do or to get what they need. And like it's sad because one of the things that we even tell people when they're applying for Social Security or caregivers is like, if you get denied once, then make an appeal, like keep asking and like don't give up. And it's just sad that that's even the way that we have to do it, like why? Like they should be giving us what we need. We shouldn't have to cry blood, sweat, and tears to get the bare minimum to make us okay in life, and it is stressful. I think it's extremely stressful to have to deal with it, so just know that you're not alone, because I feel like sometimes when you're dealing with it, you're like, oh, why do I always have to get the rude people, or why can't I just get through? Why is it taking me so long to do it? But it's not you.
I say your voice, because I had to be stern with the like fifth person they put me on the phone with, like, okay, you're the fifth person I put. I'm not getting off the phone till you tell me an answer. And she was like, oh, and then all of a sudden she got an answer. I was like, I'm not getting off this phone. You transferred, the last transfer me told me, now you're telling me to call them. Like, you call them. I was so annoyed. Yeah. And like, you have to sometimes be like that, because they'll just try to send you through these loopholes, like, and you'll never get an answer.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, Yeah. So Ashley, do you feel like, what do you feel is the thing that prevents you the most from going back to school? Do you feel like you're going to go back to school for something different now?
I don't know necessarily if I'll go back to school, but definitely want to find like my passion again, I guess. I still do love writing, and I hope to like do something with that and not feel like I am not a writer just because I'm disabled. No.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I read your stuff, girl. You're amazing.
Oh,
You're
I
awesome.
know.
Yeah. I'm like, yes. And I mean, I think finding your passion after this can be hard. I would work with construction workers and landscaping guys and construction workers that would say, you don't understand, I only love working with my hands, and they're now C4s, and it's like, how can you ever end up on top of a skyrise while they're building it if you're a C4? And so finding your passion in those moments is hard, and but what you do is, you are a writer. It's amazing what you do. I've read it. So keep pushing, girl.
Yeah, I think it's easy to compare yourself to your old self sometimes, so maybe like the construction people, they wind up being a manager, or they still put their brain and their usage to being in that field. But if and they are happy, I have met people that they go on and they find like different that now they're doing an office job, and of course it is hard at first, but
Mhm.
your mindset on it, and the comparing to like, oh, I just wish I could do it with my hands, instead of like accepting the fact that, this isn't an option for me. So what is the next option that I could do? Because like, I know it probably hurts your heart that you can't physically write out your stuff anymore, and and you're the one that feels like it's different in your heart, because you're the one that's doing it. But you are still you, and your brain and your words are so powerful. And like, whether you're writing it or you're typing it, like, you're still killing it, and you're still very good at this. So don't underestimate yourself, and I know that's things that you just have to tell yourself personally. I know it's easier said than done, but I'm just letting you know that we see you and we support you, girl.
Yeah.
thank you.
And you know what? I had to start my own practice, and I'm venturing out because sometimes the way we will end up employed is by being our own boss and creating that space and creating that lane. There might not be writers like you out there, honestly. And then that's the point. Because of that, you know we're the ones that are going to have to create that roadmap for other people, right? So that the next quad that wants to be a writer can say, oh wait, I do know one. So it's just, and because the world is so full of ableism, that we need to be
Mhm.
the ones that need to change.
Yes, I agree 1,000%. Like, if you don't see it, don't let that crush your dreams. Like, you can be the first. And something about this injury that I think is so interesting is that there's always going to be newly injured people. Like, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, unfortunately, this injury happens a lot, and a lot of people are lost. And so it's like there's going to be another rider who ends up being paralyzed. And it's just bound to happen. And so and like, it is hard to think about, like, but you're going to be the person that they look up to, and they're like, this one person did it, I know I can do it too. And that's even working with kids, that's anything, because I've talked to multiple people that worked with kids before and don't feel like that's an option for them anymore. And like, and they just write it out, they let the doctor tell them that, and they don't have this somebody to support them and tell them, like, no, you can do it, and somebody like Jessica showing them the road map to doing it. They don't have it, so they just say, okay, I can't do it, they said I can never do it again, and they just write it off as something that they can't do. And it sucks, because no, we need more people that are living out their dreams and their passions. Let's see what's going on in the chat. I have to look at my phone for some reason. I online. Sorry, guys. Hi, Peter. Thank you for joining us. Christina, hello. In 1987, I became a C5 quad. I was 13 years old. It's a totally different world from before. Yeah, that's so crazy, too, of how you were going through things. And like, still a lot of the same problems are things that we're going through now, and we're looking for the blueprint, just like other people are going to be looking for the blueprint, too. I think that's important. Mickey says, does Jessica use a straight calf?
Do I use this? I think so, right? Intermittent
not sure.
cathing, Coloplast. That's a straight cath, right? I get this.
I don't know, girl.
I
Maybe.
do.
Her answer is maybe.
Yeah, Mickey. I think yeah, it is. It is. It's the Coloplast Speedy Cath.
Oh yeah, the Speedy Cat. Andrew, thank you again for joining in from the UK. We appreciate you coming in on all our shows. Mickey said, Nicole, would he have told you not to have kids? I think that's the doctor. Did the doctor ever mention anything about you having kids, or was that a topic?
So he did. He had said I couldn't have kids, but I already had when I first, I don't know why I asked this when I first was undrugged. My first question was, can I still have kids? And I don't know why I asked that because I don't even want kids. But I asked that, and the doctor said yes. So when he told me that, the other doctor, like my primary doctor, I like was just kind of rubbed him off. Like I was like, well, okay, whatever, because I already had my rehab doctor told me that I could. So I was like, you're a liar. And I dropped him. He wasn't he was definitely an ableist doctor, and
for sure.
I dropped him as soon. He wrote on my sheet that I had to return into school. It had like a deadline. He wrote, she'll never be able to work here again, in like red pen. And then I crossed it out and I was like, yes, I will be, because I had a deadline, so I had to turn it in anyways. I was like, here it is with the doctor's signature.
Dang,
And I was just
and like that.
with him.
I'm so proud of you for choosing a different doctor and knowing that that wasn't the right fit for you. Because unfortunately, it does deter a lot of people as well. Because can you imagine you just accept that this is your primary care doctor, and you're going each visit and you're just hearing the nonsense like visit after visit, and you're not getting the right answers you need. You're not getting the right equipment that you need, and like it is hard because a lot of doctors, it's hard to tell, right? So I've even like tried to call the office like, hey, is your doctor comfortable with dealing with people with paralysis? Are they familiar? And they always tell me yes. But then when I go to the doctors, they actually don't know anything. I don't know, Jessica, if you've had this problem as well.
Yeah, I got lucky the other day. I was in the emergency room, and that was my question. I was like, is there any way any of the doctors that are here have worked with spinal cord injuries? And the nurse was like, oh, well, they all work with injuries. And I'm like, no, that is not the same thing. So, and I did get lucky. That doctor, because I was having autonomic dysreflexia really bad, and it's so hard to explain that to a doctor that doesn't understand. And they're like, oh, her blood pressure is high. And I'm like, no, I'm going to have a stroke. Get me another doctor. So, yeah.
You're so funny. Yeah. So
advocating the healthcare system.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Advocate for yourself. You got to advocate, or else, unfortunately, this world's a brutal place.
Because I think it's easy to just give up, like be like, oh, I can't do this because they said I can't do this. But it's like, no, there's doctors and people out there who believe in you, and you need that, because like I needed him to sign papers, and I was like, I'm not gonna let this guy sign any more papers for me. Like I'm finding another doctor. Because like, what was he gonna do? Keep writing that I couldn't, and then like mess up my career and everything I worked for? Like
exactly. And then the last couple comments are just Julie said, thanks for sharing, Jessica. And also Mickey said, Jessica's knowledge is so important. I'm glad she's sharing it. We definitely appreciate Jessica's knowledge because she is the one who has the most in these topics. I told her, I'm going to be leaning on you, girl, this one. So you're going to be talking a lot. So we definitely do appreciate it. And Peter said, talk to your local legislator. If they like it or not, ultimately they will work for you. And Mickey said, way to go, Nicole. Yes. Okay. So just moving on a little bit to transportation. We talked a little bit about it, but so how long did it take you to start driving afterwards, Jessica?
For me, it was 2.5 years. And when I started driving, I still struggled a lot. So I got a van. The cool thing about vans, because I couldn't fully get myself up the ramp yet, but if you park along a curb, it flattens it. So I would park along the curbs, and then it was a straight path up. I had my swivel seat, so I would roll into my van, and then the seat would come back. I would jump on, and then I would drive from the seat. And then I totaled the van, completely destroyed it. But I destroyed it like...
Oh no.
4 years ago, 3 years ago. And I realized that when I got my van, I was 22, 23. And it was like an impulse. Like I was like, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it. And even the guy at the dealership, he's like, just like, you might not be able to get it. Yeah, you're not. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it. Well, I was a kid, so I didn't realize how bad the interest rate was on that thing, how expensive they are. And luckily now I'm obviously stronger. And I was like, I'm going to get a car. And my mom was like, you can't get a car. You can't dismantle a chair. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to dismantle this chair. And I asked everyone, I was like, do you think I could dismantle a chair? And they're like, no. And then I've had some people say, yeah, you can do it. Go for it. And so I drive a car now. It took me a little bit to learn to do the whole dismantling thing. But I have one friend who's a quad who didn't like driving a van because she said it felt too heavy. And she actually started with a car, which I thought, I used to watch her because I was like, Sharon, I help you. Why are you getting a car? And she was like, Jess, I can't do it. You know, I can't do a van. They're so heavy. So I was like, we got this. So yeah, I drive a car. I think I still prefer a van. Vans are always better. I hate cars because it's just more work. The amount of time with a car or a van is the same though. You take the same amount of time to get in and out.
Okay. And did you have to get a new license or go to driving school?
Yeah. So I had to get a new license and then I had to go through like a special disabled DMV people. And then they scheduled my test to retake it. And the back of my driver's license says, this person must drive with hand controls.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely heard different people like I don't know if it depends on like where you get it at, like what they're accepting of or what it is, but yeah, I think that's the most safest way to go about. You get a new license and you go to your driving school just so like you have it underneath your belt and that you could get.
Well, so it depends. In the state of California, now the dealerships to install your hand controls will now ask you for a certificate from a driving school. And then for a really long time, what a lot of people would do is they would just keep driving with their normal driver's license and renew it online or over the mail and never actually go in. But if a cop pulls you over now, because the law changed like 10 years ago. So if a cop pulls you over now and you don't have that in the back of your driver's license, at least in California, then you're going to get in trouble. So.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that they added that in because I have heard it in from people that were like driving like earlier, you know, like, and it has probably been a while like since that. Because I definitely talked to Andrew from the Triumph Foundation, and he said that is what needs to go about, like even for them to help me get hand controls as well inside of my car. I think that the process.
I'll tell you that's probably my fault, so I'm sorry. No, I'm the one that got flagged. So before me, you didn't need the certificate, but I got them to install hand controls in a van for me. Mm-hmm. And then Andrew kept saying, you need classes. And I went on a ride with Department of Rehab, like my OT. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I just went driving with my mom, like at an empty parking lot. And I was like, let's do this. And you're not supposed to do that. And so then Andrew's like, you need to call these schools. And when I called one of the schools, he called all the dealerships and went off and said that they were going to get sued if they ever did that again. So now it's a requirement.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks a lot, Jessica.
You're welcome, guys.
Yeah, that's so funny. So going over to Ashley and Nicole. So the process of driving over there, what has deterred you guys from not really getting your license yet? You said that you started the process, right, Nicole?
I already have my license. Now I just need a card.
So you got your license for hand controls though, or you just have it?
through the whole like school, the process already, like that's done. I just now I'm working on getting the car modified.
Yeah.
But the process is kind of similar, maybe a little different. So I went through my vocational rehab therapist. She got me in contact with someone from the state who like kind of was able to fund it, because I had wanted to do it when we first got injured, but when I called, they said like the first class for evaluation was like $600, and I was like, oh no, that's a lot. So I kind of just put it on the back burner. But then when I didn't return to work, I told my vocational rehab, like, I want to work on something else since I'm not going to work because of Rona. And we did the process. So I had to do that, get it approved. I had to get like a letter from my doctor that I was healthy enough to drive and operate a vehicle. I think it helped a little too. I already had my license and it wasn't expired. I didn't have any type of records. So they were able to put it through really fast. I think usually what they had told me is if I didn't have my license, I wouldn't have been able to drive so quickly. Like the first class I went to, I was able to drive the first class. They said usually they would have just evaluated, but they didn't have to evaluate.
I've heard that too, that the amount of the classes kind of depends on like how good you are and how many more you need, you know? So I have heard that as well. Well, when I drove in the controls, I drove before, so it was a lot more easier for me to get the hang of it. It just like, as soon as I get the hang of it, kind of like, it's kind of still regular, you know, you have to like just be more aware of your blind spots and your mirrors. That's the important really part of it. And people who don't drive before, they do have a little bit more harder time. But either way, the classes do help, but they are expensive, like you said, you know.
And I was so happy when my vocational rehab therapist told me that like she can get it funded. It's just a big process, and like I've been doing this since, when did I start? September, and I still don't have the car modified because I'm going through the state and they're just taking forever. The paperwork, everything is just like a whole process. So it's a blessing that they're paying for it, but it's also taking longer than I would like it to. And if I would have done it by myself, the car would have already been done by now. Like that's what's kind of like it sucks because they're paying for it, but at the same time it's like I gotta wait for all these hurdles that they're putting me through, like with the paperwork and stuff. But then once you get evaluated in Chicago, like they tell you how much you needed. So she only told me I needed 4 hours. So I did it split 2 hours and 2 hours, and then I was done. And then the next appointment is the DMV. When I went to the DMV, we ran into some trouble because I guess I needed a letter that said I was disabled. I don't know. So I had to wait from that for the state. And that's why it's just like a whole process. So I had to leave. But then when I got the letter, it said you have to go within 3 days from receiving this letter. And I was like, what? So I had to go really quickly and take the test. And the day of the test, the van they had me practicing the whole time wasn't working. So I actually had to practice in a car, like a smaller car, not a van. I was practicing. But it went smoothly. And it's just like a whole process. But on the back, it doesn't say drives with hand control. We have like a special code. So it's, I don't know what it says, but it says it's like different because I looked at both my license, but it says like a code. And I guess when you get stopped, they know that means you drive with hand controls in Chicago. And I wonder if anywhere else they would know. And now I'm just waiting for the process to get it modified because we have a van already. We already have a car. But we're trying to get it where, because Ashley and I, Haley, are going to go everywhere together. So we're trying to get where she'd be able to lock herself in. And then I could just like hop into the car like I would if I was driving. But I can't on future stuff because then she won't be able to go with me if we have it set up just for me. So we're trying to like a whole process. But hopefully it all works out in the end. I've been filming. I've been filming.
Yeah, that's good that you have been filming it all. The process does detour people as well because it's just like, okay, they kind of just deal with having to ask for rides, which is something that I've done. I try to do the services, which is like out here we have access and there's some different services that you can use. But even using those are a pain in the ass, man. Like they take forever to make the appointment. You take forever to take us. It takes forever to pick us up. Like, and it's so bumpy in there too. And it hurts my legs with my nerve pain. It's just so many different things where it's just like, I feel like it's not pleasant to do, you know, you almost like you just avoid it. Like it just becomes like something that you don't want to deal with, you know, and it does.
Like here, the car we have available, I'll call them for a certain time, and they won't come till like 2-3 hours after. And at that point, I'm like, just cancel. I missed my
I know.
Canceling.
And then it sucks because then you have to figure out like I have to tell them that I need to be there sooner. You're waiting around. It's just so many things. It's really hard to deal with anything dealing with the government. Like, yes, there is help there, but you do have to make some sacrifices, and you are going to have to deal with some annoying stuff, unfortunately, if you go through them. And then dealing with the whole process with the car, it's just like, of course it's fast if you have money for it, but it can add up. It's expensive, and the process is long. You have to pay for an accessible car. You have to pay for the modifications. You have to pay for the classes. And it's just like, and then you have to pay for the gas to get everywhere. And it's just like, Jesus, like, can you make this a little bit more easy on me?
About the gas, as you brought up gas, when I was learning, they did tell me this. I don't know if it's the same in Cali, but the person training me said if you're at a gas station, there's more than 2 people working, they have to put gas in your tank, I guess.
Jessica, do you ever use that? I've seen that.
Yeah. What's funny is that it just felt a lot easier to get people to put gas in my car when I drove the van. With this one, I'm like honking and they don't come out. It takes forever. But the other one, like I'd be like, okay, they're taking forever. And I'd start lowering the ramp and they would run out. So that was easier. But I will say, because I have to get going soon, California does have Department of Rehab too that can help you get a vehicle, even fully modified van. Again, it goes back to language, people. If your Department of Rehab goal is to go back to work and getting a car is the only way you will get that, then they will help cover for everything. Getting a modified van can take up to 2 years, though. So that's the only thing. There are resources. You can always go to Triumph to get hand controls and all that for free because they help out with all of that if you're in the state of California. I know Andrew's talking about maybe venturing out to other states just to help everyone with the process, and it's a little faster. But yeah, getting everything done through programs takes forever, but it is helpful. Public transportation sucks. And when I was in my power chair at the beginning, that's kind of what motivated me to get out of my power chair, was that I hated public transportation and I couldn't just get a ride from anyone. So yeah, that's kind of what got me back. But there are
definitely programs. Resources. Use your resources, and don't let the process stop you, because if you start your process now, in a year or 2, then it will already be done, like, so you have to start as soon as you can. And that goes for anything that you guys are thinking about doing, whether it's Social Security, caregivers, anything that has to do with the government. Start it as soon as possible. Accept that it's going to be annoying. No, it's not you. And this is something that you just have to get through. Maybe go out to eat afterwards, reward yourself, for dealing with all these people's bullshit. Like, just keep going, keep pushing, and don't let this stop you from living your life. Don't let this injury stop you, and don't let the no's stop you neither. Keep going. And I hope you guys got inspired and motivated by this conversation. Do you guys want to add anything else?
Well, I know in Chicago, I know California is different. Our public transportation is pretty A1 day one. So if you live in a big city, it's good. You just have to check in the trains for the elevator. Like, always check, because me and Ashley made that mistake and got off and we were like, oh, back on the train. So, and then it's also important in Chicago, we have to tell the person to bring a ramp, because when you're on the train, it's like a big gap. Yeah. So you always want to tell them what stop you're getting off at. When you get to the train, they won't always tell you, but you can press the button in the train too. And always make sure, you just have to communicate, like, use your voice. And for us, we have a great public transportation. We have a bus stop right at the corner of our house. So, like, the buses all have ramps. If they don't, you can call them. They're all supposed to. So Chicago is pretty good when it comes to, like, the public transportation. It's just nasty. So it's like,
yeah, it's like kind of what you just have to deal with it. Yeah, the stops and the people and kind of stuff like that. I think that's kind of what stops people from doing it. But I do have a lot of friends that use the bus system too, because I think, Jessica, don't we have like, there's some pass that you can get for using, like, the metro or the bus. I don't remember, but my insurance was telling me.
We get a reduced fare here.
Yeah.
They reduce your fare?
With your Medi-Cal, I think you qualify for that. so that you get a reduced price or no cost or something. I don't remember. But I mean, I live in Orange County, so our city is more like everything is more separate. I know people that live in downtown LA sometimes never end up driving just because they don't have to, because everything's so like close by and their transportation's better. But
yeah, it definitely depends on where you're living, you know. But just check your resources, Google, message us, you know, we'll help you. Triumph Foundation is a great resource to use. We popped it up on the chat and on the screen a couple of times, so make sure that you guys go on there. They have tons of different programs listed under resources, so great thing to check out. And also the Department of Rehab really does help you out with a lot of things, so start that process too. Just get in there, ask some questions, and if you are unsure of how to ask those questions, message Jessica.
Yes. You know what? Even if you're not in California, if you're not in California, that means that you might not qualify for Triumph's grant. But if you go on Triumph's Foundation on their website, there's a list of grants that are all over the U.S. So you might qualify for free money. It's just in your state, and we have the resource for it. It's just we don't provide funding for people outside of California through Triumph. But I mean, he makes some exceptions. So I mean, hit us up. Me and Brianna can help you out. But for the most part, go on the website if you want to find grants in your area. The list is pretty thorough.
Yeah, definitely. I love the Triumph website. They really put in a lot of work on getting us the resources and like good lists that we need. They have the link where you can click on it and just go right over. So make sure that you guys definitely do check that out for us. This was another great conversation. I wasn't sure how long we were going to go, but we actually got tons of information out and tons of great stories. So I hope it was helpful for you guys. Let us know if you guys have any other interests or topics that you'd like us to talk about. We're back with the Women's Show every first and third Thursday at 3, and Sean is on every week at 3:30 p.m. with the guys, Tom and Bobby. So make sure to check us out for some new content. And also check out our Live to Roll merch and follow our new Live to Roll Instagram account. And if you missed our giveaway, I'm going to say it again. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and like our YouTube, and then send a picture to Sean. For a limited time, he's going to be sending some shirts out to a couple of you guys. So make sure to do that so you can rock our Live to Roll merch, you know. And this was another great conversation. I think that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.